Hi, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. We've got a fun event tonight. We have our signature Virtual Bourbon event, and that is our Flagship Whiskey. We've got a very solid lineup tonight. I'd like to introduce you to all four of our guest presenters, and we'll introduce ourselves to them, and then we'll bring them on individually and find out about their whiskey, find out about themselves, and taste their whiskey as well. Should be fun. First up, this is going to be also the order, and it's on your placemat too. This follows the order of the placemat. So first up is Guy Rehorst of Great Lakes out of Milwaukee. Hey, Guy, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Guy. Looking forward to talking with you. We'll be chatting with you first, and we'll get to that in just a second. Next up, we've got two representatives from State 38. We've got Sean Smiley, the owner and founder. Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Guys.
And then we have Don Hammond, also an owner and managing partner. Hey, Don, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having us, Steve. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Found out just minutes ago, Don is a St. Louis guy. I'm a St. Louis guy, so I always like talking about that. Those guys are out of Golden, Colorado, by the way, so that's where they hail from. Next up is Lonely Oak. So Pat Hoffman is the owner and distiller there, and he's out of Erling, Iowa. Hey, Pat, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. How are you doing weather-wise in Iowa right now?
You know, it's a little, it's dry and it's cool. So we could really use a little more heat out here. So yeah. I'm looking forward to a little warmer weather.
A little warmer weather, hopefully it's coming, but as long as you're not getting any of the stuff like they're getting out in Colorado, you can live with that. So, all right. Next up is Robert Licorice, owner of Ironroot Republic. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Absolutely. So Robert is out of Denison, Texas, though he spent time in St. Louis. That may come up today because I like talking about that. Robert, so things are well with you?
Things are great. Avoiding the hail, so all's good right now.
I'm good. And Robert, just of note, you know, if you know who I am, we do podcasts and things like that for my company, the ABV Network. One of the podcasts, our biggest one that we actually have, is called The Bourbon Show. And Robert will be featured on the next episode that comes out on the 15th of May. So coming out on Saturday, look for an in-depth interview with him where we talk about his life, how he ended up where he's at, his philosophies on distilling and all kinds of stuff, and find out about working with his mom, what that's like too. So should be fun. It spurred a whole new thing too, by the way. So we had so much fun when that interview ended. Robert, you don't even know this. When that interview ended, Renee, who's one of my co-hosts on the show, said, we should have interviewed his mom. And by the way, we should just interview somebody's mom like every month. So we're going to do that. We're going to start interviewing distillers' moms every month, starting in June with Sandy No, Freddie No's mom. So that's going to be the first one. So
that is a dangerous thing you're going to have to start
there. I can't wait. To find out about all these folks and you know, them as children and stuff like that. Did we know they're going to distill? How do you know if you know? So it's fun. All right. Well, let's get started with our event. First up, again, is Guy Rehorst, owner of Great Lakes Distilling out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Guy, how's it going tonight?
Going well. No complaints. We've been experiencing the same weather our friends in Iowa have. I think it's just been really ridiculously chilly for this time of year.
Yeah, it's ridiculously chilly in a lot of places. It's cold in St. Louis right now too. So it's that's definitely going around. It's been rainy and then it just stays damp and cold. It's definitely no fun. I haven't put the heat back on, but I feel like maybe I need to. But
I have a few times.
Yeah. So, Guy, tell us a little bit about your distillery, when you guys got started, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So Great Lakes Distillery is the first craft distillery in Wisconsin, and the first distillery with a couple of very minor exceptions. First distillery in Wisconsin since Prohibition. There was a distillery that reopened after Prohibition shut them down. They didn't last long. They eventually became the Red Star Yeast Company. So they, which everybody's familiar with, I'm sure. But
yeah,
we've been doing this since 2004. I started the distillery. I was previously a home brewer, home winemaker. Got curious about distilling, started doing it at home. Discovered I was a much better distiller than I was beer maker or winemaker, and ended up thinking, I could go to a restaurant, find local beer, find even Wisconsin wines, and for some reason couldn't find any local spirits. So that began a long road of research and experimentation and eventually licensing as the first one in the state.
Okay. So, and that's literally kind of how you learned it. You just did a little experimenting and things like that on your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should back up a little. You mentioned, talking to moms. Well, I actually built a still for my 7th grade science fair. So
No.
I know when I got my start, but of course that was a water purifier. Had no nefarious intent with that, but yeah. So we've been at it for 17 years now, roughly. So we've been the whiskey you're going to taste tonight. We've been making for I believe 12 years.
Okay.
So yeah, we're excited to be here and excited to.
You and I have a little history. I was talking about this before you came on. I wrote a book called Small Brand America back in 2014, I believe. And it was a series of books that I was doing about the grocery business and small companies competing against large. But then one time I decided to do bourbon distilleries. And I talked to you for that book. I don't know if you remember that. That's a long time ago. You do? Oh, yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah. You kind of helped me out at the last minute and I jumped in and did the interview, and I really appreciate that. So I always thank you for that. So
yeah.
That was the first bourbon thing I ever did. So that was the start of it all there in the bourbon biz. So it's cool. So this whiskey here, it's a blend. So tell us about the whiskey itself. How you came about with this idea and all this stuff, and how it got going.
Well, like every distiller, we started a distillery and didn't have old stocks of whiskey to sell. So rather than selling young whiskey aged in tiny barrels or trying to sell white whiskey, we decided to take another approach and kind of borrowed a lesson from the Scots, if you would. Decided to make a blended whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most blended whiskeys in this country, if you find an American blended whiskey, it's typically about 75% neutral grain spirit and a little bit of whiskey. Our whiskey is very much an exception to that. It's 100% whiskey. We decided to blend different styles of whiskey. So blended malt whiskey, rye whiskey, and a aged bourbon to get the flavor profile we were looking for. In many cases, while we were making the malt and the rye ourselves, and they were fairly young, the bourbon itself we were sourcing from other distilleries. Again, similar to what Scotch distilleries do, they'll source different whiskeys from different distilleries and blend. We ended up sourcing in many cases from various suppliers. We've had as old as 7-year-old bourbon blended in there. When we started, we were able to get 5-year-old MGP bourbon for like $600 a barrel. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Kind of wish I had signed a contract back then.
Right.
So what happened is again, we make the rye, we make the malt, and now actually over the last 2 years, we've had enough bourbon in stock that we produced ourselves to also supply the bourbon portion of that, which has to be a straight whiskey. Big unique point about it is that the malt whiskey has 4 different roasts of malt. We're using Vienna malt, of course, brewer's malt as well, Munich malt, a caramel malt. So we're getting, and a smoked malt. So we're getting some really neat complex flavors in that malt portion, blending that with a rye we produce and a malt whiskey that we produce as well. So, and the bourbon. So it's a really neat, fun product. We decided, after the initial batch, we were like, wow, this is really good and it's really different. And it's done really well ever since. So we still make it, even though we also sell a bourbon and a rye currently. Yeah.
Where are your products available at? What states can they be purchased in?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, right now only in Wisconsin. So all our products are sold within the state. So there was a time we were in 26 states, and that'd be the topic of a whole nother show as to why that changes. But yeah, currently we are in Wisconsin only.
Mm-hmm. So, and the company itself, where do you think it'll be going from here? You've been doing this a long time now.
Yeah.
When you're talking 14 years as a craft distiller, that's that's ancient in this business. We know that most of the activities happen in under probably 7 years or less, really. So tell us a little bit about getting to this point and where you see it going from here.
Well, getting to this point, again, we started out like a lot of distilleries, started making white spirits, did a vodka, did a gin, our gin, which has been the recipient of a ridiculous number of awards and sells ridiculously well in our state. But over time, we've added more brown spirits. We were one of the first distilleries in the U.S. to start producing absinthe. I think we were number 3 once that was legalized in 2007. But our whiskey program continues. We currently have 4 whiskey SKUs that we have available all the time. Besides the Kinnikinnick, we have Still and Oak Bourbon and a Still and Oak Rye. We also make a whiskey called Dirty Helen, which is a barrel strength version of the bourbon that we produce.
Okay.
More whiskey is in our future. Right now, we're kind of stuck with a lack of space, so we're trying to figure out our next step. But that's pretty much where we're at.
Okay. As we, get ready to taste the Kinnikinnick blend you've got here, tell us a little bit about what we should expect.
A little bit of that smokiness from that smoked malt.
Mhm.
I also get some cocoa notes on it typically. So it's very different. It's interesting because I've found it to be kind of a crossover whiskey. People that tell me they drink nothing but bourbon and don't like anything but bourbon have told me, wow, this is actually really nice. And other people who drink nothing but scotch have told me, wow, this is pretty awesome. So it's kind of a neat crossover and seems to please a lot of people. I tend to use it more so in cocktails. I just had about a half hour ago had a Sazerac with it and was as usual delighted by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and blends are having an interesting resurgence too. So you were ahead of the game. Coming with this with a real true blend, not the neutral grain spirit stuff. So yeah, very interesting. We did a movie about blending called "Blending is Trending." So put in a plug for that. If anybody hasn't seen that, check it out. We talk about the resurgence in whiskey of that. We talk about the ups and downs. It's was not a thing, was a thing, was a huge thing, was the biggest thing in the world, fell off, and now it's starting to make a little bit of a comeback. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
We like to do, Guy, we like to share nosing and tasting notes as a group. You can see it on the chat, a couple of those already coming in.
Yeah.
So a couple of the notes and folks, give it a smell and see what you say. Granny Smith apples, citrus, malt, green grass, apple, tea, new malt, pear, apple, white grape juice, powdered cocoa. Yeah, it's really good on the nose.
Yeah,
Guy.
a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah, multi-layers of flavor. So some floral notes, grape jelly and cocoa. See, I love when it's across the board like this. And it is one of those, each nose that you take, it comes up a little bit different each time, which tells you there is that great layering of flavors or scents on the nose for sure.
Yep.
All right, gang, let's give this one a taste and see. We've got a lot of great nosing notes there. Appreciate you guys doing all those in. Let's try it. Oh, yeah, that's good. And drinks easy. Definitely apple on the taste, getting some of that there. But somebody said grape jelly. A couple people said that, I think. It's kind of there too. There's some grape. What other tasting notes are we getting now that we tasted this? Apple, green tea. The spice starts coming out on the palate. Lingering longer than I thought it would, said Jason Souter. Caramel, honey cereal, apple, hot cereal, apple. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of apple on there. Honey, I agree with all of this. Grain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of different notes there, right, Guy?
Yeah. I like I said, I always get a ton of cocoa every time I taste it.
Mm-hmm.
And I should mention too, when we're blending it, it's a little variation every time because we're we're trying to hit a target. And so the amount of each blender that goes into it changes a little bit from batch to batch, but we get a pretty consistent product doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else anybody like to add to that one? Great flavor, great drinker. And yeah, I think we're off to a really good start, Guy. Where do you think this particular product goes from here? I always like to ask craft distillers that because there can be some evolution. Though you've been in this a long time, maybe this is exactly where you're at with this and that's what you want. Or sometimes people like to continue to tinker with things. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I don't think we'll tinker with it. We've been getting, we have a ton of loyal customers that enjoy this tremendously in our home market. And I think, frankly, I'd probably piss some of them off.
You don't need that headache, right?
No, certainly not. So, you know, and to me, you know, it's an established product. Like I said, we've been, you know, 12, 13 years we've had this product. Won the World Whiskey Awards in London, won Best American Blended Whiskey, won gold at San Francisco. I mean, it's I think it kind of speaks for itself, and it says, don't screw with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really great. So yeah, I could see it just enjoying these pour after pour. It's kind of got a great mouthfeel to it. And yeah, just good across the board. Really like what you got going on here, Guy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being part of this. Please stick around. We always like to do an open Q&A at the end where people can open up their mics, ask whatever questions they like. And of course, we've sent you a sample. Hopefully you got the samples of other folks' whiskey here. You can enjoy it along with us. Okay. All right. Next up is the team from State 38. We have Sean Smiley and Don Hammonds. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey. Good, Steve. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good seeing you guys. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you got started in this business. You know, Don, we want to hear why you would leave St. Louis. That sounds crazy to me, but maybe it's a great opportunity here and all that kind of stuff.
I've been out of St. Louis for almost 37 years, so long time ago.
All right, that's all longer than I've been alive. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Way older than that. I'm 53. So.
Yeah.
So humble beginnings, y'all. This is a story that my wife hates to hear, but you're gonna this is my first still right here.
Wow.
Bed Bath and Beyond salad bowl, and this is Home Depot copper pipe and story. So imagine a 6'4", 150-pound, acne-faced chemical engineer at the University of Colorado who couldn't get a girl or a friend to interact with me to save my life. So what I decided to do was use my intelligence in college, which was also it wasn't very big, but I used what little intelligence I had to try to work my way into the party scene in college. So I wasn't old enough to actually buy beer or distilled spirits at 19 years old, but I was old enough to go to Bed Bath and Beyond and Home Depot and buy copper pipe and bowls. I was also old enough to go and buy grain from the local feed store. So I began fermenting grain and agave, actually, because Whole Foods was a really big thing here in Colorado. So I would take agave or grain, I would do a mash or fermentation of that sugar, and then I would convert that into a beer, basically. I would then take that beer mash and I would actually distill it through this little handmade still that I made here in college. And lo and behold, this complete dorky chemical engineer, skinny acne kid would actually show up at parties in college with mason jars of moonshine. And next thing you know, I was kind of popular in college.
You had friends all of a sudden.
I had friends all of a sudden. People wanted to talk to me. People wanted to invite me into parties. It was fantastic. So that was the humble beginnings. And that is actually the still that we keep here in the tasting room as, you know, kind of the showing of where this whole thing started 23 years ago.
Very cool. So Sean, so you graduate then, do you then move on to a career, something in the field, or do you open up the distillery right away? How did this come about?
I went to the career.
Okay.
I had to pay some student loan debt and bills in general, and make mom and dad happy, because that's what we all want to make happy is mom and dad.
Right. Got to make mom and dad happy. Yeah.
So, I'm a executive actually for a corporation now, a large corporation in the U.S. But about 13 years ago, I told my wife, I said, "Look, I'm thinking about starting a distillery," and her response to me was, "Can you please get the crystal meth thing off the stove and stop distilling alcohol in our family home, because it makes the neighbors really scared about what you're doing, and it makes our family scared about what you're doing." And I said, "Yes, honey, I could do this." So I rented a space in Golden, Colorado, and built out State 38 Distilling, which is where we are today. So
great. And how did you meet Don? How did this relationship start?
Wow, that's an interesting story. So Sean started the distillery in 2013 and really kind of migrated the spirits. Started with agave spirits. We still actually make agave spirits today.
Okay.
So, tequilas, we can't call them that because they're not made in Mexico, but we actually do make a Blanco, a Repo, and an Añejo agave spirit. We call our agave spirit our fifth whiskey, which it's fantastic. I spent 37 years in the healthcare industry, and decided that was long enough. Through the course of my life, including you were talking about moms and dads and the influence. My dad owned his own business. My mom was quite an entrepreneur in her own right, and so owned a number of businesses over those years. And all of my children decided they were going to end up in Colorado, which they were exposed to and enjoyed. And so my wife and I decided to move here through a 6 degrees of separation kind of a scenario. Sean and I found each other. I was looking for a second career. My background is really business and kind of organization and kind of growing things. And so Sean, as he said, has a career in the petroleum business. And we kind of found each other in June of 19, or June of 19, and came on board. And we're really working to kind of relaunch, rebirth State 38. We're very excited. Our 4 whiskeys, we relaunched new bottles, new labels, some new recipes in December of 2020. And we're doing the same thing with our agave spirits. So we're really excited about the future. But, the foundation of this distillery really is, making good spirits and taking care of our customers and kind of just doing right. Both Sean and I are, we're tinkerers, we're doers. We weld, we build, we make stuff. And so that's kind of what our spirits and our distillery is about. So, yeah.
Yeah. How about your products? Where can we find your products? Just in Colorado or outside of the state line?
We're distributed through RNDC, which I think a lot of folks on here knows is a large distributor. We are in a space. It's funny to hear Guy's comment. And by the way, Guy, good to see you again. Guy, I saw you 5 years ago at your distillery. Love all the things that you're making. Your products are fantastic. But same story that Guy said. We are space limited right now, where we actually are looking to grow into a larger space because our current distillery setup can only handle the volume that we can do in Colorado with RNDC. RNDC has opened up the floodgates for us to be in Texas, California, New Mexico, et cetera. But we can't physically produce the volume in our space right now. We're operating a forklift in probably a dangerous way, navigating between pallets.
There's no one on OSHA, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
No. We don't allow them to come on. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic how the growth has happened. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth. We're looking for a larger space. The business is growing bigger than we thought that it would happen over the past even 24 months. COVID, ironically, I think you all, the other fellow distillers would probably say this, COVID actually was a net positive for us because more people were drinking at home, and we took advantage of selling bottles from the distillery, which we have more margin sale through as opposed to distribution. So we took that as an opportunity for us to connect to our consumers more directly. And so 2020 was actually a really positive year for us overall.
It's a weird phenomenon, right? Because early days of COVID, so I'm talking, over a year ago now at this point, it was clearing the basically the bottom shelf. It was like you go in and all the Old Crow is gone, or the Jim Beam white label, all that got cleared out. And you thought, well, that's what people are drinking now, I guess. I don't, but then it seems in the last, I don't know, 6-8 months, it's been more of a focus on the craft and exploring those things. So I don't know, did you guys see that kind of spike, or was it just level where you just went up for you guys?
No, we saw a spike for sure, but it wasn't because we were sitting on our hands. It was a very aggressive approach. But we took the mentality of, we're not going to just let this business die because of COVID.
Right.
Mentality of, we're going to get forward facing to all of our customers through YouTube videos, Facebook Live videos, Instagram videos. We went really aggressive to get more customer facing instead of hiding behind a distributor or hiding behind, any other third party retailer that's selling our product. And we said, we're going to take this as an opportunity for the world to understand who State 30 it is, because we're very proud of who we are. We're very proud of our products that we make. And we're actually not shy people. We like to talk about our product. We like to talk about our process and what we do. And that worked very much to our advantage.
So Steve, actually, two of the things that we did, and Sean and I are both what I would call value kind of oriented guys. So a lot of restaurants and bars were doing cocktail kits to go. Cocktails to go.
Yeah.
We actually did cocktail kits to go.
Yeah.
Where we created a bigger value profile. So we have 3 lines of spirits. We have our whiskeys, we have our agave spirits, and then we have a more of a I would characterize it as a kind of a product, a gin, a vodka, and an absinthe. And we got very aggressive with that, put some cocktail kits together. Was very successful. We got very aggressive with some bottle sales and some discount kinds of things that said, if you bought 2 of our brown spirits, you got a bottle of vodka or rye. And so we saw a lot of folks getting excited about what we were doing. We exposed a lot of folks, I think, that maybe didn't have a chance to drink our products. And so we, as Sean said, we really had an opportunity. I'll just tell you. So I did the stats. It's funny you mentioned. So a year ago, we were shut down 100% in April. And I did the stats from last year to this year, and our tasting room sales were up over 300%. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
April to April. But when you look at that, it was because, as Sean mentioned, we were doing all these things to really kind of get out there and really say to people, we're a local product, we're a local commodity. We really want to support you. And we were very fortunate to be supported by our community. And so, yeah, we feel.
Yeah. Okay. Come to find out, Golden, Colorado is a city full of people who like to drink alcohol.
Yeah. Who knew, right? Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? There's a big brewery close by you may have heard of, but yeah.
So Sean, the stuff that you're making, is this just upping the recipe for things that you were creating as a young man, or have you refined that stuff now that you have a full size distillery?
Definitely refined. So the thing that we will always live by at State 30 is always be changing, ABC, right? So it's very important for us to continuously be finding ways from yeast strains, mashing processes, fermentation, distillation process, etc. We're constantly trying to be better all the time. We're not satisfied with what we have. We're going to always try to make things better. So to answer your question, I think in a shorter way is it's going to evolve, and it will evolve continuously until we feel like we've got double golds in every category, which I don't think that's going to happen for any short period of time. It's something that we're going to continue to work for the duration of the distillery.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about the bourbon. We're going to be drinking your bourbon tonight. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with this recipe and just what we need to know about it before we start tasting.
Yep. So this is a 60 to 70% corn-based bourbon. The remaining 40%, 30% is equal parts rye, wheat, and barley.
Okay.
We source from local Colorado grains as much as we possibly can. We barrel this in independent stave ISC barrels, Cooper Select Char number 3, non-toasted. What you guys are tasting is our non-toasted. We have actually since changed our barrel program to be toasted. That happened about 6 months ago. But what you're tasting right now is a non-toasted Char 3 ISC barrel, 53 gallon. This is a 4-year aged true grain to glass bourbon from State 38 Distilling. Hopefully you get obviously some good oak characteristic on it, but the most important thing that I think that we follow on this batch is that there's really no of that bourbon burn that you feel sometimes. It goes down very, very smooth. It's very mellow. And yeah, we're very proud of what we put together here.
Okay. Well, folks, if you haven't done so already, let's get the nosing notes going here. A couple have already come in and sound pretty good. Cherry bomb, Jason Souter says. So cherry cordial candies with caramel corn syrup, hints of agave vegetal under the sweetness, orange butterscotch, pink peppercorns. Oh, that's interesting.
You know what's funny about it?
What is the pink peppercorn?
Yeah.
Pink peppercorns? I don't know. Don't those come in? You get them like when you get a fancy steak somewhere.
I like the comment. So it's the agave comment is actually really fascinating to me because we do an open fermentation for all of our whiskeys, but we also do open fermentation for our agave spirits as well. And we'll hear our customers commonly say that they can pick up on tequila notes on our whiskeys and on our tequila. When I say tequila is agave spirit.
Right. We know that.
Whiskey notes on our agave spirits. And what's really kind of fun about that is because it's all open fermentation, that it's exposed to our barrels, and whether it's a Reposado barrel or Añejo barrel, or it's a bourbon or rye barrel, the open fermentation is exposed both ways. So you might actually start to pick up some really fantastic notes of agave spirit or tequila into our whiskeys, which is really unique because nowhere in Mexico are you going to find a tequila manufacturer making a whiskey. And very rarely in America are you going to find a whiskey manufacturer making agave spirit. So we have found this kind of unique niche where we can have kind of a blend of odors that are kind of saturating themselves into the fermentation and mash and even the distillation and barrel age for our product.
Interesting. Some of the other cherry is on every one of these, I think. So you're definitely a cherry bomb you got going on here, which is cool. Yeah. So mild tobacco. I like Mike's comments. He gave the sour cherry gel, goatsy caramel creams, and cola. So he hashtagged it fat kid notes. And then you've got some malt forward cherry candy and light cinnamon. So pretty much every thing had some form of cherry in there. So
well, we appreciate that, and we're working towards more fruit notes. The original State 38 bourbon mash bill actually was heavier on malted barley, dark chocolate malt, dark coffee malts, but have since toned that down because we had a lot of complaints from people who said, and in fact, Steve, it's funny, you're drinking Deer Hammer. So Deer Hammer, Lenny and I are very, very good friends. Lenny will use very dark chocolate, dark coffee, malted barley with his whiskeys. So you get a lot of that coffee chocolate flavor bomb. We transitioned away from that because we had a lot of complaints. People said this isn't a bourbon, even though legally it is.
Right.
Tone down those dark chocolate coffee and caramel malts so that we're going to more focus on kind of the fruitier notes that are going to come forward now.
Gotcha. Well, let's everyone, if you haven't done so already, cheers. Let's give this one a taste and share some tasting notes.
Salute. Cheers, y'all.
Enjoy, guys.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's That's really good too. You do get the cherry on the taste as well. Honeysuckle, I would say, is another taste that I'm getting there. Anybody else got anything they can share on the tasting notes? Mezcal on the palate.
Yeah, you hear
Sweet
that?
mineral oil,
You hear that?
lots of oak and
Actually, Steve,
floral.
we make a peach smoked whiskey. We call it our Scotch, but I just can't call it that. But
Right.
so to Sean's point, there's lots of
Yeah.
flavor profiles going on.
Aerosols. Yeah.
Bruce did a good one. Nice coffee in the finish, which I agree. That's where that hits you. So in the finish, definitely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. Thanks for tasting our spirits.
Yeah, chocolate covered cherry. Yeah, really, really good stuff. Again, and another one that you could just enjoy sipping and having pour after pour until you fall off the porch is the famous saying. That's when you stop. doing
Yes.
those pours. What malts are in here? You're getting a question from Ed. He likes the heavily toasted malts. So
Yeah.
did you?
I read a comment. The leather is something that we also very much recognize. We're getting a lot of leather right now on this particular batch. I personally am working towards getting away from the leather, but it's, you love it, you hate it. But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of leather that's coming through too. I just saw that comment there, but it's a great comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. What is the origin of the name of the distillery name?
Hey, okay. So Colorado
Trivia.
Colorado is the what state?
36th?
No.
No, of course. 39th?
Yeah. Colorado is the 38th state.
Wow.
And are very, very, I'm a Colorado native, third generation. I'm extremely proud to represent this state, which is why we buy from local grain producers as much as we can. And we love this state very much. And so we named the company State 38.
State 38. Fair enough. Very cool. Well, gentlemen, thank you for sharing this with us, and we appreciate you coming on. And please stick around. We'll ask you guys some questions later. Okay.
Cheers, y'all. Thank you.
All right. Next up is Pat Hoffman, owner of Lonely Oak in Erling, Iowa. Hey, Pat, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on, and yes, introduce your stuff to the audience and to me. I haven't tried your stuff, so that should be fun today. But before we get to all that, tell us a little bit about how you got in this business.
Well, I kind of came to it late in life, I guess. I started in the healthcare industry, and I guess kind of got burned out on that. And at the same time, it was a small family business, and in addition to that, I grew up on a farm, and I always farmed with my dad. And so, I've done it since I was a kid. And the more I got into it, and of course, I started appreciating whiskey more, I couldn't believe how few distillers are in Iowa. And, Iowa, nobody grows corn like we do. Bourbon made from corn, whiskey's made from grape. And I just got this in my head, and I couldn't let it go. I sat on it for a year before I told my wife, and luckily she didn't say no. My accountant told me to go buy a Corvette and get it out of my system. I didn't listen to him either. And, it went from a crazy idea. And after I answered all the questions, it wasn't a question of why, it was a question of why not. And we are a on-farm distiller. So we grow all the grain that we distill. We call it seed to spirit.
Okay.
So actually last week we planted our Wopsee Valley corn, which we use for in our bourbon. And so we just think we have the opportunity to do something really special and really unique in the industry. And we pulled the trigger, and from there it's just been full speed ahead. So,
So, and how long have you been open at this point?
it's going on 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
4 years in July when we launched our North 40 vodkas.
Gotcha. And tell us a little bit about how you learned how to, distill the stuff that you're doing. Did you take classes? Did you just look online? Did you just experiment on your own? How did all this come about?
I was very lucky. I was getting into it. Now, of course, I was trying to learn as much as I could, read and everything. And a friend of mine that I met, an acquaintance, I should say, I was having trouble getting quotes on parts or equipment. And he said, "Hey, I got a friend. I got a number for a guy. I'll give it to you. Here's his cell number. He's very informative and he'll help you." And I'm like, "What's his name?" And he said, "Dave Pickerel." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay." I never knew who Dave was. I mean, Dave never rang a bell. And about a week later, he called me and he said, "Hey, I probably shouldn't have given you that phone number. Why don't call, just throw it away." Well, then I had to call. Then I knew I was on to something. So I told Dave, I called Dave once a week for 6 months, and because I didn't want to be a pest. But and then one day he called me back, and we had a conversation about what we were doing here, and on farm, growing our own grain, taking it from the soil to the bottle. And he said he was in, and he helped us. His engineer was Nicole Austin. She's now with
Dickel, right?
Cascade Hollow, Dickel.
Yeah, Dickel.
So we had some of the best teachers that we could ever ask for, not out of want. It was just out of sheer luck. And we're blessed that it just fell on us like that. And as far as the mash bills, the recipes, we had advice from everybody, but we kind of made them ourselves after a lot of trial and error. We use a lot of wine yeast versus distiller's yeast.
Okay.
Just because we like the mouthfeel and the flavor profiles that we get from it with our corn. And so, I never work a day in my life. That's how much fun this is. I wish I would have started this right out of college if I would have known, but I didn't have the money then. So,
Exactly. Yeah. That becomes the issue there for sure. And the name Lonely Oak, is there just one oak tree on the farm? How does this come about?
Well, I'll tell you what, every distillery lies a little bit about something.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the story. My dad, where the distillery sits where he grew up on the footprint of his house. And of course it was an empty lot 7-8 years ago when or maybe 10 years ago when we started. Anyway, it was harvest season, and we're trying to think of a name. Everybody that's in this business knows how hard it is to come up with a name. Everybody's got one, that the one that you want or whatever. And so we were looking and Googling, and everything came up wrong for us. So it was during harvest season. I planted the combine, and I was walking towards my pickup, where it was parked in this empty lot, which is where the distillery is now. And I dropped pliers, and when I looked up, I saw this beautiful tree setting in the sunset. And it just popped into my head, Lonely Oak Distillery. And I called my wife. I live 3 miles from the distillery, but I called my wife just so I wouldn't forget between there, because I liked the name so much. So the next day, my dad was out here. We were starting to get ready for harvest, and I told him, "Hey, I got a name for the distillery." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "Lonely Oak." And he said, "That's a good name. How'd you come up with it?" I said, "Well, last night I parked the combine, and I was walking towards my truck, and I dropped my pliers, and I bent over and I reached, and as I looked up, I saw that beautiful tree sitting in that beautiful sunset, and it just came to me, Lonely Oak." And he looked at me and he said, "You mean that old maple?" And so we do have a Lonely Oak now. That's I said, Lonely Maple sounds like a syrup.
Right.
So that's where we are.
That's how that came out. Okay. Well, I didn't know that was going to be such a great story. I'm glad I asked. Yeah.
Our Steeple Ridge bourbon is, we can see 3 church steeples from our farm. So we call it, that's where the Steeple Ridge comes from.
Yeah. Back to Dave Pickerel. What an amazing guy. And yeah, just very generous with his time. Helped over 100 craft distilleries, and really the Johnny Appleseed of craft distilling. I mean, yeah, and really a special person, and great that you got to know him on a person. Did you ever get the opportunity to hang out with him, to spend some time with him, or was it all phone conversations?
It was all phone conversations. We were going to meet at the American Craft Spirit Association convention in Minneapolis, 2019. That's where we were going to shake hands. That was, he always said, I asked him when he was helping me, I said, "Do you need a contract?" And he said, "If you need a contract to do business with me, I don't want to do business with you." He said, when we meet, we'll shake hands. So that's where we were going to meet. But he passed a few months prior to that. So yeah, everything was done over the phone. But, a great personality, and I can't, help me out immensely, from start to finish. So we were very lucky to have him help us.
I'm a big fan of his, and I don't normally listen to other people's bourbon podcasts because we do, our own thing. But I've sought out all the ones with Dave because I'm just such a Dave fan, and I would compare the interview that we did with anybody. So if you search on my website, Dave Pickerel's name, it'll come up, our Bourbon Show interview. It's just literally, I think, the quintessential Dave Pickerel interview, and we just got him on the right day. And we just came about as fans. We don't think we're a big deal at all. We just are fans. We were in awe of someone that was telling us all these great stories. And the more we liked the stories and enjoyed them, the more he reached back into the banks of his mind and came up with more cool stories. So it's just, that might be our best interview that we've ever done. So check out the Dave Pickerel podcast that we did at abvnetwork.com for sure. All right. Tell us a little bit specifically about this bourbon that we're going to be drinking in just a second here.
Sure. So we're drinking our Black Label Steeple Ridge. This is our single barrel variety. It's 102 proof. It's a straight bourbon. Our distillery, we sourced nothing. Everything we started with vodka, and we made bourbon, and we let it set. So you're looking anywhere from 3.5 years of age on these barrels. These are 15 and mostly 30-gallon barrels.
Okay.
That this was aged in. And it's 72% corn, 28% soft red winter wheat. We also use 3 different yeasts, and we will barrel each yeast independently during our process. So we have a number of different profiles that we pick up depending on which yeast, which variety, and things. We use barrels from the Barrel Mill out of Minnesota.
Okay.
Char number 3. We love the results, and we're just looking forward to the future.
Absolutely. Next question I'm asking Justine to unmute here. And Justine, can you show, we have a question about Pat's product here. Can you show it? You need to talk to, in case somebody has on the speaker view, that'll allow your picture to come up. So if you don't mind showing what we'd like to show and ask about.
I wanted to know, I can't even see. Hold on. I'm on speaker view and I can't see myself.
You should, once you start talking, it should come up. There you go.
So yeah, the penny on the bottle. What does the penny mean?
Yes, so you got a penny on there. What is there any significance, and do you put specific years on? Does that tie to anything as well?
We thought we were going to do the year of the penny is the year of the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea, but they might not make 2021 pennies until August, right? So that never worked out, but it was part desperation, part inspiration. I was looking for a neck label. Our vodka was coming out. I had a dozen of them drawn up, and I didn't like any one of them. And I went back to where I was working, and amongst the scraps of paper was a shiny penny. And I thought about it. I thought about the copper of the penny, and you can see the copper of our still behind us. And I thought that reflected that. I stuck it on the bottle and I showed my wife, and she said, you know what, let's do it. And the funny thing is that we don't say anything about it. Not on our website, not on the bottle, because we found out that it means something different to anybody. You know, it's pennies from heaven. It's messages from a lost loved one. It's good luck. We know what it means to us, but we always ask people what it means for them. And we've had some stories that just will put tears in your eyes, you know, all from a penny on a bourbon bottle. It's crazy. And we love hearing them.
Yeah. One last question from Eric Johnson. What type of corn is used in the Wopsee Valley variety?
The Wopsee Valley is an heirloom varietal corn. So it was developed in Iowa about back in the 1800s, and we looked at a bunch of, when we started doing this, we were looking at other corns. You're familiar with, like a Bloody Butcher, some other corns, but when we found this one had a history in Iowa of making spirits, we decided that's the one that we want. And so we actually couldn't find anybody that grew it, you know, because this is an heirloom varietal. So I farm, I plant lots of regular traditional hybrid varieties. Our hybrids that I planted last week, they're going to get 225 to 250 bushel the acre. This is going to get maybe 100. Okay. But we grow it for the flavor profile. And so that is where we started with it. We loved the results. We were all kind of searching, but once we got the results, we decided, you know what, let's stick with this. And so that's what we've been using for our bourbon. So we plant about 25 acres every year. And that we probably have to increase that as production increases, but that's what we're doing right now.
Very nice. Nosing notes coming in already from the bear: vanilla extract, spicy caramel, hint of black cherry, very soft nose, inside of a wheat bread bag, butter, a little spice. I was thinking like French toast on the nose.
That's a good one. I've never heard that before.
Someone's Justine saying gingerbread, brown sugar, oatmeal, mint, light oak, light cinnamon from Ed Escott. Yeah.
I always pick up cherry.
Cherry. Yeah, that was in
front.
Was Bear said that? Yeah, he said black cherry. So yeah. Very cool. Let's give it a taste. Cheers, gang. Let's try this out.
Cheers.
Brown sugar, oak on the nose. Definitely baked goods on the taste for sure. Definitely some spice there. So that's nice. Nice hug, says the Murph. I agree. Brown sugar on the nose. So there, brown sugar on the taste too, I'd say. Some cinnamon.
Yeah, we just won gold at the Denver International Spirits Competition a couple weeks ago. So that's kind of one of the first competitions that we've entered with it. So we're excited for that.
Congrats on that. That's big. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
that's cool. Oak follows throughout the taste, says Eric. Yeah, this is really good. You gotta love this. Getting to try new whiskeys and different takes, and they're all unique and different in their own way, and all excellent. So, another good one there, right, gang? All right. Well, Pat, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your company, your whiskey, and please stick around. We'd love to talk to you at the end. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. All right. Absolutely. Next up is Mr. Robert Licorice. Robert, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing really good. Doing really good. Steve, we'll get to your question at the end then. So when we bring everybody back. So you are in Denison, Texas, but you did live in St. Louis for a while, right?
I did. I went to law school in St. Louis.
Nice. Yeah, we got good law schools here.
That you do. That you do.
We got a couple good schools, St. Louis University and Washington University, right in St. Louis. So, yeah, we've got some good universities here for sure.
Oh.
I wasn't smart enough to get into either one of those, by the way. So, but yes, I do appreciate the fact that they're here, and yeah, it's cool. So, but you end up you moved around a lot, right? As a kid, you was it a military family?
No, my father is actually in the copper mining business.
Okay.
So we did a lot of travel from kind of plant to plant around the US.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you moved around quite a bit but ultimately you ended up in Texas, and that's where you opened your distillery.
Oh yeah. We lived in Texas most of our lives, but I mean, my parents are Montana born, lived in Corpus Christi, Amarillo, Sherman, Denison, kind of a little bit all over the state a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Your parents were still in St. Louis, though. Was there any thoughts to open the distillery in St. Louis with the fact that you had lived there for school and then the parents were in St. Louis, or that was never even a consideration?
Yeah, well, that was my initial, that's what I was going to do just because we were already there and established. But my brother's wife said if we were going to do something this dumb that we had to go back to Texas near her family. So back to Texas we went.
Back to Texas you went. Okay, cool. Yeah. And how long you guys been doing this now?
We'll be 7 years old in August. So
7 years. That's pretty good. That's not bad.
Still here, still kicking.
Yeah, and you are very much into utilizing unique grains and things like that. You're definitely bring something different to the table, don't you?
Oh yeah, and I think my brother and I were actually trained by Nancy Fraley, Hubert Germain Raban, and I've done a little bit of distilling over in France, and so there was a big focus on working with local grains and again playing around with different varietals. So I think that was one of my favorite things I learned when we were over in France was just how distinctive the different grape varietals really were. And so when we got back, and again, tasting some of the great stuff coming out from other parts of the country and from our friends down in Waco at Balcones, really saw what some of these different varietals can do and how different they can really be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And right now your products are available obviously in Texas, but kind of you follow Total Wine, right? Is that what you said when I interviewed you before?
Yeah, we're anywhere there's a Total Wine that sells liquor, you can get our product if it's in stock, which again is not always and the easiest for small distilleries to maintain that big of a kind of blanket, but we do our best.
Mm-hmm. And you don't come from a family that did this or anything. This was kind of when we talked before, you and your brother had kind of talked about this maybe as a retirement dream. You were going to be a lawyer, your brother's an engineer, and you thought, well, maybe once we get our careers done, we'll get into this, in our later years. But you decided after graduating law school, it wasn't right for you. And that's what kind of got this thing going, right?
Yeah, I told my mom the Christmas dinner before I graduated in May, because again, I like waiting for the best possible time to tell everybody to break the news that, maybe this law degree that I've paid all this money for to get, not going to use that, and why not? Do something dumb?
At Christmas, did you do that thing with the fork and the glassware? Everyone, I've got something I'd like to talk about.
No, I think it was right after we did do a cheers amongst the family, and I was like, and not gonna be a lawyer, and dead silence after that. So, oh boy,
yeah, but it worked out. And how did you learn how to distill then? So again, not coming from that background.
I mean, for us, it was let's go to the people that we love what they're already doing. So we ended up with. Again, the first distillery I ever went to in the US was at Dry Fly up in Spokane. So we went back up, visited those guys. From there, we kind of interned with the guys down in Balcones back in the day. And then from there, it was Hubert and Nancy that we learned from. And that's really when a lot of things started kicking off from us, just kind of really love the French methodology and the kind of the style and approach that they take. So from there, we, again, as I said, we ultimately led going back over to France and doing a little bit of distilling over there and just kind of playing around with that overall philosophy.
Right. And I don't know, what was it last year or the year before? You won, a guy who doesn't do this, doesn't come from the family background, just starts doing this, on your own, you and your family, and you win the title which is the dumbest thing. I hate these awards like this, but it's not against you. You just enter a contest, you win, and you get awarded the best bourbon in the world. How about that? That's crazy, right?
It was pretty insane. I think that creates a little bit too crazy of expectations, but sometimes it's right place, right time, right product, right there, and you and get the right people that love your stuff, and you never know what can happen. And again, it's kind of the fun and crazy part of competitions, but at the same time, it's still a huge honor to us. And again, blown away, not something that we ever expected to happen for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even imagine. It had to be an emotional roller coaster. Excitement that you win, this pat on the back that you've got something that people like. It had to be a cool moment for sure.
It was hugely, it's such a huge honor. You're such in shock at the time. You've got your mom there going like, I thought you guys did all right doing this. And, and then at the same time you have the fear of going, oh, Greg, everyone's going to now just really tear us down after this. So, it's one of those things that it's probably one of the most exciting days of my life, but also like, all right, we got big shoes to fill now.
Yes. So what tell us a little bit about what we're going to be trying. We're going to be trying the best bourbon in the world, correct?
You are going to be trying Harbinger. It's the 115 proof version, which is the one that did win the big award. This one is actually the most recent edition, where the one that technically won was
correct.
A couple of years ago. But
yeah. But this is a relative of that. It's come from that lineage. This is the product by name that won.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
very cool. All right, let's give that thing a pour. And how did you come up with the formula for this one? The mash bill and all that kind of stuff. Was this experiments or how did this come about?
So we've got 4 corn mash bills that we run. One, so they're all going to use local yellow, non-GMO yellow dent corn. And then we use different heirloom corns for the flavoring grains for each of our whiskeys. So you're going to have Bloody Butcher corn is going to be in one of the mash bills, purple corn, that's Peruvian varietal in one of them. Another one's going to be a flint corn called Floriani that I absolutely love and has crazy flavor. And the last one's going to be like more of a traditional low rye mash bill.
Okay.
And then we blend them all together. Harbinger line tends to have more Bloody Butcher corn, more purple corn in it, whereas Promethean's going to be the inverse of that typically.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about on the nose here. So folks, there's a couple coming in already: green, sweet apple, early mock, orange blossoms, honey, pear, vanilla, kettle corn, candied dried fruit, and leather.
Oh yeah. A little bit of Texas funk in there.
Little Texas funk. Orange and maple syrup from Eric. Yeah. I mean, I definitely get the green sweet apple, like the bear says there. That's a good one. Orange. Yeah.
I always get a little pear, playing around with that orange, and kind of again, maple syrup, I think, is one of my favorite things on this particular whiskey.
Jason came up with kettle corn. Does a lot of people say that? No.
Oh yeah. I mean,
no one's ever said that. Have they? Have they said kettle corn when they've known that before?
Oh yeah. No, especially when you're dealing with a whiskey that's probably 98% corn, you're definitely gonna get a little bit of that on there.
Okay. Pay no attention to the juicy fruit one there. That's from Mr. Bell. Someone always has to put juicy fruit or fruit stripe gum. It's going to be one of the two. It's, every time we do this, that's just an inside joke. I think. I don't think that's an actual nosy note. Apologies for that. Very good. Let's give it a taste and see what we think here. So cheers, gang. Oh yeah, that is really nice. Yeah, you get some of the flavors that we talked about. It definitely has an apple and pear kind of taste to me, which is nice. It heats up just a nice amount, despite the fact, what's the proof? It's
115 proof.
115. It does not drink like it's 115, man. This to me, easy drinker, and yeah, good stuff, says Warner.
Oh, thank you.
That's right. Yeah. Thick molasses and leather, sweet fruits and syrup. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Damn it, Robert. This might be the best bourbon in the world. You son of a bitch. You did it. You did it. I got mad about that award. Now I'm drinking this and I'm like, son of a bitch. They're right. Really good stuff, man.
Thank you very much.
It's legit. Very, very good. Very cool. Very cool. But I got to give you a hard time about the award. Because and let me tell you something. I'd enter that thing too. And if I won, I would tell everyone that. And like I said on the show, I would have been prank calling Jimmy Russell and saying I make the best bourbon in the world and hanging up the phone. And so yeah, it's really cool that you got that going on, man.
Jimmy be calling you back. You better be careful about that one.
Yeah, he's a character. Yeah, if you meet him, yeah, he's a really sweet guy and loves talking to bourbon fans and loves talking whiskey. You can talk with whiskey with him all day. You can ask him anything. He remembers everything. You bring in a bottle, he'll tell you what year is from when it came off the production line. And bring in a decanter, he'll see it and know, oh, that one's from 1976. That one's from 78. That's from 72. He knows everything. But I don't think he was a real sweet guy to like Eddie. You asked Eddie for his stories about his dad. His dad was tough on him. Yeah, his dad was not easy.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
No, other notes, vanilla, cherry taste, absolutely. Very, very good stuff. Very good. Anything else anybody wants to add taste-wise onto that? Really, really good. Let's ask Justine, my co-host for the show. Justine, what do you think taste-wise on this one?
I'm getting kind of like a cranberry orange bread.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, she's way better at that stuff than I am for sure. So that's good.
Jason,
The king of gingers. King of
That
gingers.
is true. It is true.
Very cool. Well, Robert, thank you also for joining us. We appreciate you coming on here, sharing your signature whiskey with us for our flagship whiskey. And like all of our guests, let's hear a round of applause for Robert, as well as all of our guest presenters today from the distilleries. Really great job. And of course, we like to leave time at the end. We've left about 20 minutes at the end here for Q&A. So the first one is a question for Pat Hoffman. And again, you can either ask it to everybody, you can ask it to an individual, you can put it in the chat, or you can open up your mic and talk. Feel free to open up that and talk. But our first question, Pat, I forgot to ask you where your whiskey's available at. Is that just an Iowa thing, or can you get it at other places as well?
Oh, no, we are in Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Kansas, Illinois. We're going into Missouri probably the next couple of weeks.
Good call. Good call.
We're with Spirit Hub out of Illinois. They ship to 4 states, I think, New Hampshire and Maine, I think, in addition. And that's where we are right now. We were just kind of growing little by little and expanding as we go. So,
okay. So Paul Epp wants to know if you know a couple people in Denison.
I probably do.
Okay. So their names are Mitch Martin or Tony Kai, Kaai.
Not those two.
Okay. All right. Everybody with those two.
I could ask around.
Okay.
That's about 25 miles from us. So, yeah.
Oh, yes. That was actually for Robert, though. That was in Denison. Sorry.
there are many Denison. No, Tony Kai runs the economic development in Denison, so yeah, I know him very, very well.
You do? Oh, Very nice. Very nice. Price point on the Ironroot Harbinger is a question that's come in.
Depends on the state. Generally, outside of Texas, somehow it ends up cheaper. So it's anywhere between 49 and 59 typically.
Okay, 49 to 59. Fair enough. Excellent. What else? Would anybody like to ask? Again, feel free to open up your mics.
Got a question for Robert.
Sure.
Since you work with Nancy Fraley, I know she espouses the slow proofing and the use of like the Petito and the Armagnac style of proofing. Do you guys do that?
100%. So, and again, we had to, a lot of the French techniques you have to adapt, especially on the bourbon production side, because like the French, again, with Petito, you can't actually add that to bourbon and technically still be bourbon according to the government. So there's fun stuff with that, or I guess some of the French also call that fab. But as far as the slow proofing, we actually do that in cask when it comes to the bourbon. So we actually, the individual bourbon barrels, we will water down in cask, which I really, really like that method. It is time consuming and a pain in the rear, but it really makes a difference to do that slow reduction. One of the other tools we really enjoy using is actually playing around with proof as the product ages. Especially for guys that end up again on the outer parts of the warehouse, because down in Texas we get beat with heat so much, we pull a lot of oak very quickly, and so you can really use that proof to kind of help balance that out, because that tannin is going to be very, very it's alcohol soluble, so you can pull that, and phenol you're going to pull much quicker if the proof's high, so you can kind of edge off some of those barrels a little bit by lowering that proof even before you really start the slow production process.
All right, thanks.
From the State 38 team, any unique challenges being, distilling at the altitude that you're at? They're coming back on.
We're back.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
So we have the opposite problem that y'all have. So at higher altitude, we actually lose more water in our barrels than we do alcohol. So we'll barrel a bourbon, a straight rye, straight wheat, etc., at 120, 125 proof. When we actually come to opening up that barrel 4 years later, we're at 135 proof or more. So Colorado is a really interesting dynamic where the dry atmosphere actually pulls more water from the barrel. So we end up with a very, very high proof barrel at the end of the 4 or 5 year cycle.
Ah, that makes sense. Mr. Bill and I just went to a road trip to Colorado, and we got to try at another distillery one of their barrels that was 6 years old, and it came in when they poured for us this bourbon. We taste it, and then they get the proofer out and they check it, and it's 142 something, 142.9, which is insane. It's just insane.
We have barrels that we put in at 125. Our batch one rye, straight rye that we did 6 years ago, is probably clocking at about 145 proof right now.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Bill and I want to buy that barrel from you, so we'll talk about it.
Hey, Sean, just question for you. What type of angel share do you guys see up in Colorado with that, again, especially with the elevation?
10%.
Or more. Yeah.
10% or more. So we lose 5 gallons a year or more on angel share.
5 gallons or more. Wow. Oof. That's ugly. Cork pops. We've been doing a little research on that. Lenny comes on our shows all the time. His cork pops were terrible, but then he bought this, like the most expensive mic he's got a way more expensive mic than me. And now he's winning, because we do a cork pop on every show, and now he's winning every show. And because he always claimed it was altitude before. Now now that he wins, it's just a better mic. You guys get pretty good cork pops in Golden, Colorado?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So I want to go back to 10% is annual, by the way, just annual losses. But no, we have not experienced corks popping off of a barrel. We also stack our barrels vertically versus horizontal because of our space constraints. So we have the cork that are going basically
the bung.
But I'm literally talking about the cork. So like this cork pop here. Here we go. That's a good cork pop right there.
If I take a bottle from Denver to Breckenridge and pull the cork, we're going to get an incredible pop.
Yeah, it pops. Yeah, but no, we have safety seals on our bottles that we have no issue with that.
It's an audio thing.
Yeah.
We have seals on our bottles. We have no issue with that.
Okay. Well, we love that sound. So we've built a whole network around that sound. So it shows you what we know. All right. Other questions for a group here.
So, all right, I got a couple questions. One being, I know that the guys from State 38 were talking about their initial still and the size of their still. What is everybody running for stills? Y'all talk about being craft. I see some that look like 50, 75-gallon stills in the backgrounds. I was just curious what you're running.
I love that you asked that question because we are very, very homegrown legit. So I actually bought a 250-gallon milk pasteurization kettle from a farm out of Chicago that I then bought copper sheet metal from a website called onlinemetals.com.
You gotta love it when engineers, get involved.
Those, sheets of copper into 12-inch diameter tubes, and then I brazed welded those tubes to create an 18-foot column. That we actually have a bubble plate column. We have 4 bubble plates on it. Built that entire thing from scratch. So our still is a 250-gallon milk pasteurization kettle with online metal shopping column that you see on top of it. And then the condenser is also a 12-inch diameter tube that I found from a junkyard, stainless steel tube. The rest is Home Depot parts and fittings. So I built this still from scratch. It's a true 250-gallon still that's all copper top from the boiler up to the top that I built on a budget because I didn't have $1 million or $2 million or $3 million budget to build this distillery. My wife gave me a $100,000 budget. And so with that being said, I had to buy parts and pieces from Amazon, from
Home Depot.
from eBay, from
Home Depot. Yeah.
Yep, all the things. And I
Harlan Wheatley often shops there for Buffalo Trace. He's buying still parts. No.
You will never, in the history of distilling, see a distill or a still that is the same likelihood of State 38 still because I built it from scratch from used farm parts and online part shopping and Home Depot shopping. So we're very proud of what we set up, but it's all completely custom built.
Yeah. Someone mentioned in the comments here, well, Justine, actually, you need to meet our buddy Adam Stump of Stumpy Spirits. That guy is your spirit animal. You two are 2 peas in a pod. Then he's an engineer as well, and he builds everything. And he's been on this crazy project now. He found this still in Belgium where he's actually getting a legitimate still this time. But yeah, he likes to build everything himself and stuff like that. So it's a guy you need to talk to for sure. So check him out. Stumpy Spirits out of Columbia, Illinois.
Yep.
Robert, what's your still? What are you running on, man?
We run on a 1,200-gallon traditional Scottish pot still. It's got a really sharp kind of downward angle off the top. And then we also have a 2,000-liter Kubota that we run for vodka, gin, light whiskey, that type of stuff.
Gotcha. Guy, how about you? What still are you running?
This one is a 65-gallon hybrid still. We use it mostly for, we do a lot of fruit brandies. We actually run our gin through that. And then this guy behind me here is a 250-gallon pot.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. And last but not least, Pat.
Yeah, we run a 300-gallon Cote hybrid still. It's modular, so we can run it in virtually any configuration from a pot still to 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns.
Yeah, very cool. Eric's saying Sean needs to talk to Second Sight. Yeah, they do. They definitely created their own. Michael Myers at 291 too. His original still. He's got different equipment in there now, but his first still was something that he put together himself too.
Michael and I are good friends.
Yeah. He's one of the most interesting characters in whiskey for sure. Love that guy. Cool. Other questions for anybody or everybody from our distilleries today? Anything else? Well, I thank everyone for joining us again. I want to give one last round of applause to all of our great distillers and distillery representatives that were with us today. Really appreciate you delivering a great event, and most importantly, bringing us some great whiskey. We really appreciate that. Thanks a lot, gang. I'll turn off the recorder now. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions or anything like that. We can talk bourbon, whiskey, whatever you'd like, but we're going to stop now and say goodbye to all of our friends that are watching at home.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for tasting, everybody.